So I really love doing this. I'm really lucky to have the job I have as guiding teacher of a Zen center because it allows me to share the Dharma through teaching, classes, talks, one-on-one meetings, etc. And I just love sharing the Dharma, it's a very beneficial practice. Ultimately, we just do the practice in order to do the practice. We just meditate in order to meditate, not to gain anything. But it is a very beneficial practice, and I want to be honest about that too. And I think the reason I love sharing it so much is because it's been so beneficial to me in my life. It's resulted in some pretty, deep changes for me. I always had some kind of existential questions which I really needed to address. I also had a lot of anxiety. I was a very anxious person when I was young, and that has been really deeply changed. I still get a little anxious now and then, and something will come up, but I kind of know how to deal with it. And I don't really get angry much anymore, maybe a little bit now and then, but it doesn't stay long. I feel like some deep rewiring has occurred. And this practice can actually change our brain chemistry. It can change our relationship with the world, and it's quite remarkable. So it is something I just really, really like to share. And the title of this talk is The Quiet Revolution. And I think that's a pretty good title. Quiet, we're pretty quiet. Zen Buddhists are a pretty quiet bunch. We spend most of our time sitting and staring at a wall. We do some rituals, that may get a little bit loud. There may occasionally be a shout, something spontaneous. But generally, we're pretty quiet people. And revolution, I really do think that this practice is revolutionary because it can be personally revolutionary in the way I spoke about it, that it can deeply change the way we relate to the world. I've done many things in my life. I've always been kind of drawn to seeing how I can help other folks, and I've done that in many ways, social action and volunteer work and things like that. But I do believe that teaching Zen Buddhism is the deepest thing I've ever found to affect change, because the change can be so deep. We can find, once we clear our minds and get a little quiet, we examine what's going on up here. We can notice our habitual ways of doing things. We might notice, wow, I've been doing that thing my whole life, and I thought it was just a given. I thought I would always react that way, but I realize now I have a choice and I don't need to. So we can change in deep and helpful ways. So that's revolutionary in a personal sense. And I think in a societal sense too, it's revolutionary. It affects the people around us. I can't tell you how many times I've heard someone tell me, a non-practicing partner of a Zen practitioner tells me, I'm so glad my partner has found Zen. I'm not really interested, but my partner has really changed. And thank you for doing this. So it has a ripple effect. It's kind of like dropping a rock in the pond. You get these ripples. One person decides to look at life a little more deliberately and slow down a little bit, and it affects the people around them. And it can have a larger societal effect too, because if a number of people do this kind of practice, it changes how you do things. You see things clearly. You may have a better idea of what to do and how to do it effectively. So what I'm saying tonight, it's an offering. I would like to offer you something of a practice that has been very helpful to me and to a lot of other people I know. But I'm not saying you should do this practice, or this is the only way, or this is the best practice for you. I don't know. People are different. I think there are many different religions because there are many different kinds of people. And some are drawn to one religion and they practice it, and it really helps them to reach something really quiet and maybe kind of a giving up of the self and personal needs. And for some people that's Zen Buddhism, for some it's not. And it's possible to practice Zen Buddhism and still practice another religion. They're not exclusive. Many people who practice another religion also meditate, and they find that the two things actually really go well together. So if this is something interesting for you, I would encourage you to pursue it. Try to get a little meditation practice going, and see what happens. And if it's not, that's okay. That's okay. We can all find our own ways to go deep inside. So I'd like to kind of, try to just get to the heart of it now. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the Four Noble Truths, which is the most basic teaching of the Buddha. And then I'm going to talk just a bit about the Zen Buddhist take on the Four Noble Truths, because Zen was a bit of a change from how Buddhism was originally taught. And then I'm going to talk about how the Four Noble Truths manifest themselves in meditation, and I'm going to talk a little bit about practice. So I'd like to begin with a quote that I'm going to read from a book called The Wisdom of No Escape by Pema Chodron. Maybe some of you have read Pema Chodron. She's very popular. She's wonderful. I quote her all the time. She's a Tibetan Buddhist, different from our tradition, but that's okay. And she starts her book out this way. There's a common misunderstanding among all the human beings who have ever been born on the earth that the best way to live is to try to avoid pain and just try to get comfortable. You can see this even in insects and animals and birds. All of us are the same. I think it's kind of an astonishing statement, because I think it's something that we kind of take for granted, right? Well, yes, we want to feel good and we don't want to feel bad. Isn't that what life is about? Isn't that the key to happiness? But she's looking at this in a really deep way. And she goes on to say, a much more interesting, kind, adventurous, and joyful approach to life is to begin to develop our curiosity, not caring whether the object of our inquisitiveness is bitter or sweet. So it is a different way of living, a more adventurous way of living, instead of coming into a situation and asking, how can I use this situation to feel good and not feel bad? We go into this situation saying, what is this? What is this? With a deep curiosity. I am not going to judge this as to whether it's good or bad. I'm just going to accept it. I'm going to let it in. I'm going to let things be, and I'm going to live my life in that adventurous way. And of course, we don't take this to extremes. We still take care of ourselves. We still stay safe and everything. But what an interesting idea, that I am just going to open up myself up to this moment and not ask whether it's good or bad. I'm just going to let it come, let it come, let it come. What is it now? What is it now? What is it now? So curiosity and not knowing are central to Zen practice. Every moment we can be asking, what is this? And letting it come in. And I think we've probably all had times when that has happened for us. Maybe we're working on a big project and we're so committed to the project, we don't think about whether anything is good or bad for us. We just want to get the project done. And we kind of get into a rhythm and we go, okay, what's next? Okay, I'll take care of that. Okay, what's next? I'll take care of that. And then we realize, wow, I feel really at peace right now. What's going on here? I think it's because I was curious and open and ready, and I was taking each thing as it comes. And so that gave me that quiet feeling. So the practices we do in Zen, meditation and ritual and things like that, can help us to approach life in that way and cultivate it. We've all had times like this, but we can actually cultivate that more and be present. Just be present with this kind of vividness. And what Pema is talking about there is said more expansively in the Four Noble Truths. So the Buddha lived 2,500 years ago. He wanted to solve the problem of why people suffer. He became enlightened. After his enlightenment, he went and found 5 companions that he had been with before his enlightenment, and he gave them a talk. So that was the very first Dharma talk, the first sutra, the first Buddhist sermon, and it was about the Four Noble Truths. That's how basic this is. So the first noble truth is the truth of dukkha. Dukkha is a Sanskrit word. It literally means a wheel out of kilter. So it's a feeling of unease. If there's a wheel out of kilter, the cart is not running right, and you want to fix it, and you want to get things back on track, and you want to go with the flow. It's often translated as suffering. But suffering is not a great translation because dukkha encompasses so much. Physical pain, emotional pain, existential pain, the vague feeling of uneasiness we might get because we don't really understand things. Like, what does this mean to be human? What is going on here? It's all of that. So the first noble truth is the truth of dukkha. We accept that. We accept that that is part of life. Now, that doesn't mean life is only dukkha. I mean, there is a great deal of joy in life too. Life is wonderful. But it seems like to be really honest about how to live in the world, the best thing to do is to begin with that acknowledgement that there is this difficulty of suffering. And it is something we need to look into. What do we do about this? And the second noble truth is that suffering is caused by desire. And this is really the radical thing. This was really what the Buddha said that was new. And again, we don't take this to extremes, but our desires really give us a lot of difficulty. Say I burn my finger on the stove, well, that pain is very real. It's not my desire that's causing it. But all the things I add to that, which I can do through mental activity, I really wish this were different. You can spend a whole lot of time wishing things were different, and even though they can't be changed. I wish this would be over right now. I wish I wasn't such a klutz. I'm really a klutz. We could go down these mental roads, where we kind of put ourselves down. We make all these stories. The pain in the finger is real, but all that stuff we add is just not necessary. It's our desire for things to be different that causes us so much trouble. We want to hang on to the things we have. We're afraid of losing them. We don't want to get bad things that are going to hurt us, and we don't want to accept impermanence. Impermanence is very basic to the message of Zen. Everything is impermanent, and we fight against it and we deny it. If only things could be different, if only this, if only that. It's kind of like, an easy example, I think, is material possessions. We can get kind of fixated on a material possession, and we think it's going to solve all of our problems. So we have this desire, and if we can just fulfill this desire to get the thing, then we're going to be happy. But maybe we get the thing, maybe we get that new vehicle we wanted so badly, And yeah, it's great. It gets us there. We don't have to worry about it breaking down. It makes us happy to see it, but it didn't transform my life the way I wanted it to. And we may get that new vehicle and it's great for a while, but then the luster kind of wears off. And we notice when somebody else has a better vehicle. Oh, if I could just get that one, if I could get that bigger truck, that more powerful truck, or that more electric truck, or whatever, then I would be happy. And we get that, pretty happy for a while, then we see another one. And it's endless, desire and cessation of desire. We can try to fulfill a desire, and we feel good for a while, but a new desire arises. It's always happening. It's always happening. And it's not a terrible thing to fulfill our desires. We all do it. But if we think that's the answer, if we think that someday I'm just going to get everything lined up perfectly, and then I'll be happy. I'll get my material possessions, and I'll get my relationships straightened out, and I'll get my job situation straightened out. I'll just get all of these things lined up, and I'm making progress, then it slips away. Now I'm unhappy again. Oh, if I could just all of that. And we keep coming back to that. But it dawns on us eventually that we're probably never going to get everything perfectly lined up. Life is always going to be a process of trying to do this, trying to fulfill those desires. Well, how about if instead of trying to fulfill our desires, making that the main thing, we accept things as they are, look at things as they are, and try to be happy with things as they are. Just accept them. And that really leads into the third noble truth, which is we can end our suffering by ending our desire. Not totally, not 100%, everyone suffers. But if we can work on, if we can learn to see how we're always grasping and needing things and kind of caught on this endless round of that, if we can see that, we can stop engaging in such grasping behavior all of the time. And then things kind of slow down a little bit. And we are, if not ending, at least curtailing our suffering. So that's the heart of the Buddha's message. It's about desire and the cessation of desire. And the fourth noble truth is that there is an eightfold path for doing this. You ask, well, how do we do this? And this is one of many schemes in Buddhism for becoming more aware, becoming more awake. And it has 8 steps. Right view, which is sort of that light bulb moment. Oh, there's a better way. Maybe I could live my life a little more deliberately. Maybe I could find a way to really deal with those deep questions that have been bothering me for so long. And the second is right intention, which is like a vow. Having realized I can do something about this, I express my intention to do this. There is right effort. All of this takes some effort. Meditation practice. It's not so easy. Keeping it foremost in your life is not so easy. It's kind of like a running practice or anything like that. You need to really make it a top priority. We have right speech, being careful about what we say, because speaking is such a big part of what we do. And another one is right action. If we see things clearly, if we quiet our minds, if we get off of the wheel of desire and fulfillment of desire, we are more likely to know what to do. We are more likely to engage in right action in the world. And right action is compassionate action, action that makes the world better. And I like to emphasize right action because often after my talks, I'll get the same question, which is a very good question. The question is basically, You're talking about how we should accept things as they are. And that's the heart of this. Does that mean we accept injustice? Does that mean we don't try to make things better? And no, that's not what it means. When I'm talking about accepting things as they are, I'm talking about accepting the truth of things as they are. Accepting that there are things that we can't change, accepting reality. But acceptance does not mean approval. Once we've accepted things as they are, we then do our very best to try to change them for the better. We change the things that we can change. So Zen Buddhists tend to be very active in the world, and I stress it all the time, because there can be this idea that what we want to achieve is simply bliss, and the ideal is to go off and be in a cave somewhere and be blissful for the rest of your life. That's okay, that's fine for folks who want to do that, but my interest is in being in the world and trying to work against injustice and trying to do healing things and to try to do helpful things in the world. So right action is pretty basic. There is right livelihood, how you make a living, try to do that in a way that's helpful for everyone. Right mindfulness, and mindfulness is a very popular thing these past few years, and it's a basic Buddhist practice of being present with what you're doing throughout your day, and it's wonderful because we can't be meditating 24 hours a day, but at any point during our day we can become mindful and just really focus on what we're doing and avoid distractions. If we're running, we can just run, maybe not listen to music. Music's fine, but to do it mindfully, we leave the music at home. Or if we're mowing our lawn, we just mow the lawn, keep coming back to it, keep coming back to it. The same way we would come back to our breath in meditation. And then the 8th part of the path is right meditation, which is something we'll talk about more in just a minute. So the Zen take on the Four Noble Truths is that some of the early Buddhists got a little stuck on the idea that we want to sort of leave this realm for a higher realm, that there is samsara and nirvana. Samsara is the difficulties of this earth, the round of birth and death, the round of desire and fulfillment of desire, that we want to escape that and achieve nirvana, which is more like a sort of heavenly state. And in Zen Buddhism, we really say that the two are the same, because there's no place to escape to. It's all really just right here. It's not about escaping suffering and moving to a place of non-suffering. It's really about giving up the need to see those as two different things. So this is a non-dual practice. So samsara and nirvana are the same. So what do we have left there? We have vivid being in this moment. And that's what Zen is about. Just being vividly present in this moment with that great curiosity and adventurousness and asking, what is it now? What's coming now? And being really attuned to that. So that's our practice. And meditation helps us with that. Our ritual helps us with that. Some of our forms, our robes. I'm wearing traditional robes like people have worn in Japan for hundreds of years. They helps me to stand in a certain way, a more mindful way. And these things help us in many different ways. So this adventurousness I'm talking about manifests itself in meditation. It's something we can think about and remind ourselves of and try to do throughout our day, but it's in meditation that we really learn to do it, because moment to moment we can accept just what's coming. Moment to moment we can accept this moment without judgment or need or desire. So that's how it works. But what I would like to do Now, if you will indulge me, is I'd like to do a little bit of a guided meditation so we can all kind of have a little experience of what that's like. So I will do this. It might last 10 minutes or so, or maybe 15. So I would like you to find a posture that works for you. If you're sitting in a chair, put your feet flat on the floor, if they'll reach. Mine don't always reach. And sit up straight. You can lean against the back of the chair if you would like. Sit up straight, but not rigidly. You don't want to be completely relaxed, but you don't want to be really rigid either. So kind of a relaxed yet alert pose. And if you're sitting on a cushion, you can see how some folks are sitting here. I see some very good sitting postures. You can see what they're doing with their legs and how they're sitting up nice and straight. So I'm going to ring the bell to begin in just a sec here. Okay, to begin, let's take a deep breath and let our breath out again. And I'll just breathe normally. And we would like to bring our attention to this time and this place. So let's take a moment just to notice what it feels like to be in this room. And take a moment to notice what it feels like to be sitting here physically. What does it feel like to be in this body right now? And try to do this without judgment. No right or wrong. Just what's it like. And now, I would like for you to bring your attention to your breath. Notice your breathing. Pay attention to your breathing. Notice each part of your breathing, how your lungs fill up, how your chest raises and lowers. And approach this with curiosity. We don't need to try to breathe in any certain way. We don't need to think about whether we're doing this right. We don't need to analyze the breath or ask how we're doing. Just stick with the experience of the breath and allow yourself to experience it by focusing on it. And you may find that thoughts are arising. That's very likely. It may be a little hard to follow your breath. If a thought arises, see if you can let that thought go and just notice that you're thinking, oh, there's a thought. Let the thought go, come back to your breath. Each time a thought arises, you do that same thing. And you do that without judgment, without need for it to be different. If you have many, many thoughts, that's okay. If you have no thoughts, that's okay. It's not a contest. However it is, it's just okay. Just let it be what it is. Come back to your breath as often as you need to. Whether you stray never or whether you stray constantly, it doesn't matter. If you stray, just come back. And this is a very gentle process. Make a gentle, persistent effort. No need to judge how you're doing. Just whenever you see that your mind has strayed, come back to the breath. Come back to the breath gently, with forgiveness, every time. And now I'd like to invite you to change this a little because we're going to drop the focus on the breath, and instead we're going to continue to sit quietly, but we're going to open ourselves to whatever comes. whatever comes to you, which may be a physical feeling, it may be an emotion, it may be a feeling of what it's like to be in the room. Just open yourself to what's coming. If it's a thought, you try to let the thought go and come back instead to what's coming up in a non-thinking way. So this is just being for a while, just being okay with whatever comes up. What does the universe have to show us right now? And we'll sit just another minute or so, and then I'll end the meditation with a bell. So thank you. Thank you for sitting with me. The first part of that meditation was a focused meditation, focusing on the breath, which is very good for quieting the mind. And at the end, there was just a little hint of a different kind of meditation, which does not focus on any particular thing, but just accepts whatever comes in. And that's something called shikantaza. And that is sort of that adventurous spirit I was talking about. Just what is it? What is it? What is it now? Just letting it come in, which helps us with clear seeing. And you never know how it's going to be when you sit down to meditate. Sometimes it's wonderful and blissful. Sometimes you can't stop thinking for the entire 30 minutes. Sometimes it changes minute by minute. You never know, but it's always an adventure to sit down on the cushion or the chair and to kind of go inside and see what's there. And we can learn so much in that quiet. My notes disappeared for a minute. So, what I think meditation practice can lead to is compassionate action. Compassionate action. That's what it's all about. It's about compassion. It's about caring for other folks, animals, the planet. It's about healing. It's about joy. And this compassion arises when we meditate a lot. It quiets our own personal desires, and we're able to see more, I think, the needs of other folks. And of course, there are many ways to do this, and we all do this. Zen is a way of, one particular way of cultivating this, but we see the interconnections between things. And there's kind of a deep philosophical thing in Buddhism about interconnections, that things do not exist independently from each other. And we can talk all about that, sometimes we do, but it's something you can feel on a really direct level, I think. In meditation, you can get this interconnection that, wow, the self, this Ted is a bit of an illusion. Ted does not exist separate from everything else. And that realization, of course, encourages great compassion. Because if we're all the same, if we're really not separate, if the separateness is kind of an illusion, then we really want to take care of each other. Then your well-being is as important to me as my own well-being. And that leads to action. Of course, we want to make things better. Of course, we want to take care of other people. So we do our best to help. And in Zen Buddhism, we have the bodhisattva ideal, a bodhisattva being a being who could achieve total bliss, but puts that off and tries to help all other beings first, and will not enter total bliss until all beings can do that. That's our ideal.